Chapter 1. Born in the Shadow of Possession. They came into the galaxy like a quiet wound opening. No thunder, no prophecy, only the cold certainty that something unnatural had been carved into the flesh of mankind. The Exorcists did not arrive with fanfare. They manifested, as if the void itself had decided humanity needed a sharper kind of blade. Before their first war cry, before their crimson sigils were daubed across armor the color of dying suns, the story of their birth was already unfolding in silence. Deep beneath the surface of the Imperium, in vaults that smelled of incense, iron, and unspoken fear, it began with a question. How do you build a warrior who cannot be corrupted by the warp? How do you make a soul that cannot be claimed? The chapter's origin is not a tale told in the halls of brotherhood. It is whispered, piece by piece, across scattered archives and half-burned data slates. The name Inquisition shadows every line. The hand of the Ordo Malleus stains every page. And the scent of the warp, its cold hunger, its invisible breath, hangs over every rumor like a low tide of dread. The Exorcists are not born warriors. They are not even born sane. They begin as children, stolen from shattered worlds, or perhaps chosen from bloodlines already thinned by exposure to the inexplicable. Pale-faced youths who do not scream when the lights flicker, who do not flinch when shadows move against the grain of reality. Children who look into darkness and do not look away. These are taken, marked, locked away beneath sanctified iron. And there, their trial begins. No aspirant of the Exorcist chapter has ever walked willingly into their transformation. They are thrust into it, stripped of their names, their memories, their futures. Only their fear remains, and even that is destined to die. For the Exorcists are forged through a ritual so brutal, so abhorrent, that even among the Adeptus Astartes it is spoken of only behind sealed chapel doors. They are deliberately possessed. The child is bound, the wards dim, the sigils ignite, and the demonic presence, kept hungry, kept caged, kept eager, is released into the vessel of mortal flesh. Some aspirants last a day, some last an hour, some die before the first word of the rite has finished being spoken. But those who survive, those who endure the invasion of something older than stars, something that whispers in dead languages and laughs in fractal patterns, emerge changed, scarred, but alive. And in that survival lies the first truth of the Exorcists. A warrior who has already died in spirit cannot be killed by terror. A soul that has already been taken cannot be taken again. The ritual has a name that no exorcist will speak. The Inquisitors call it the rubric of possession. The Grey Knights refuse to acknowledge it at all. But the Ordo Malleus records tell a different tale. Cold, clinical, sacrilegious. Induce controlled demonic inhabitation. Force the subject to resist, reject, and expel the entity from within their own soul. It is not exorcism. It is self-exorcism, a purification through self-inflicted hell. And when the demon is finally torn free, cast out not by priests, not by wards, but by the raw, burning defiance of the aspirant soul, something impossible happens. The boy becomes empty, not hollow, not corrupted, resilient, hardened, closed to intrusion. The warp recoils. The shadows retreat. A mind that has tasted the abyss and spat it back cannot be claimed again. There are scars, invisible ones, soul-deep fractures. Their eyes lose something human. Their voices carry an echo that does not belong to mortal throats. But they live, and they are remade. The Exorcists do not shout. Their battle cries are not defiant. Their victory chants are not triumphant. They move like men who have nothing left to fear, because fear itself was burned out of them long before the armor was ever donned. When the rubric ends, the survivors are taken to the gene forges. The implantation of Astartes organs is almost gentle compared to what they have already endured. The black carapace feels like a relief. The psycho-indoctrination is a quiet whisper compared to the screams of the warp. What kills a normal aspirant strengthens an exorcist. What breaks most minds simply slides off as like frost on iron. And when the transformation ends, the child is gone. The man remains. An exorcist rises. Their armor is crimson, the color of sealing wax and sanctioned blood. Their pauldrons bear the sigil of the purifying flame. Their eyes, those cold, steady eyes, reflect nothing but the silence after a demon's scream. The chapter does not recruit in great numbers. They cannot. The rubric devours most who face it. Each exorcist is a rare, terrible miracle, a soul that has survived the warp and returned with its own name still intact. This origin shapes their doctrine, their culture, their entire existence. Where other chapters speak of courage, the exorcists speak of clarity. Where others wage war with fury, they wage it with precision sharper than steel. Where others fear corruption, they walk into it as if into rain, unbothered, untouched. They are sent where sanity dies first. Demon worlds, warp-touched anomalies, cult infestations blooming like rot beneath planetary skin. Places where the veil thins and the air tastes like whispered blasphemy. The exorcists do not bring relief. They bring silence. They are the Imperium's hidden answer to corruption too deep for purity seals, too entrenched for faith alone. Their wars are fought not for glory, but for survival, for the fragile hope that mankind can still stand before the hunger of the warp without being devoured. And always, behind their actions, the same cold truth. They know the enemy from the inside. They have smelled its breath, and they refuse to bow. Their existence is heresy balanced on a blade's edge. Their methods are sanctified only because they work. Their souls are scarred, but unbroken. They're the exorcists, and the void fears them. For once you have exorcised yourself, once you have cast out your own damnation, there is nothing left in the universe that can claim you. Not demon, not shadow, not fear. Only the hunt remains, and the silence that follows. Chapter 2. The Rubric of Possession. It begins in silence. Always silence. A chamber buried so deep beneath stone and sigil that light itself feels unwelcome. Here the air does not move. It waits. Iron rings glimmer in the half-dark, and the scent of sanctified oil mingles with blood that was never fully scrubbed from the floor. This is the cradle of damnation, the rubric of possession, the rite that births an exorcist by unmaking him. There are no witnesses, only custodians. Inquisitors robed in the sigils of the Ordo Malleus stand motionless, watching not with curiosity, but dread they will never admit aloud. Their lips do not pray. Their faith is irrelevant here. At the center lies the candidate, stripped bare of name, rank, and history. No title, no lineage, no comfort, only chains, iron bound into flesh, skin marked with runes older than language. Around him, the litany begins, not in words, but in frequencies that crawl through bone and mind alike. A liturgy not meant for mortal ears. The goal is not victory, it is survival. The demon is called by name, not a name in the tongue of men, but in the twisted cadence of the warp, a sound that vibrates wrong against reality, a chord played on the tendons of existence. And then it comes. There is no flash of light, no thunderous arrival, only pressure, dense, suffocating, like the deep sea collapsing around a fragile shell. The child spasms. His eyes roll white. The sigils flare as something enters. For most, that is where the story ends. They scream until the throat tears. They convulse until the heart ruptures. Then the body stills, and the demon remains, trapped but triumphant, staring through mortal eyes that will never be human again. These vessels are burned, their ashes scattered into the void. The inquisitors record nothing. Only the number of the dead rises. But sometimes, rarely, one resists. It begins with a breath, a refusal, not strength, not holiness, defiance. The demon claws inward, whispering 1,000 promises. It offers power, vengeance, eternity. The aspirant answers with silence. The creature screams through his nerves, burns him from within, tries to rewrite him. but the chains of the rite hold its form inside the boundary of his flesh. There is nowhere to flee, nowhere to hide. And so the duel begins, not between two bodies, but between two wills sharing one skull. Every heartbeat becomes a war, every breath a siege. The demon shifts shape with each pulse. Now whisper, now flame, now the face of someone the child once loved. The aspirant bleeds from eyes and mouth, speaking no words because language is useless in this kind of war. Only refusal matters. For hours, days, no one knows how long, the contest rages. Time loses meaning. The soul stretches thin between two hungers, until it either breaks or bends into something else. Those who lose become abominations. Those who win become exorcists. When victory comes, it is not loud. It is quiet, an inward snap, like a door slamming shut forever. The demon's voice fades into static. The air grows still. The child opens his eyes again, and something behind them has changed. He does not cry. He does not smile. He simply breathes, once, twice, and the Inquisitors mark it as life. The demon's essence is gone, burned away by the raw assertion of the human soul. This is not faith. This is sharpened to an impossible edge. The aspirant is cut free. The chains fall. He collapses, trembling, whispering a name that is no longer his own. From that moment onward, he belongs not to himself, nor to the world. He belongs to the silence. The ritual is performed in secrecy, always beneath the watch of the Grey Knights who pretend not to see. Even they, the paragons of psychic purity, avoid this chamber, for what happens here is not clean. It is sanctioned heresy, a controlled damnation. But the results cannot be denied. Those who emerge from the rubric walk with a weight the rest of mankind cannot perceive. Their souls resonate differently. The warp touches them and recoils. A demon sees an exorcist and remembers being expelled. It flees before the first bolter is raised. There are side effects. Always. Some exorcists hear whispers that never fade, remnants of the entities they exorcised. Some dream of voices clawing at the edges of their consciousness, begging to be let back in. Others feel nothing at all, numbed, emptied, unable to feel joy or sorrow, only the steady pulse of purpose. But all of them share the same gaze, cold, unwavering, void dark, the look of something that has seen eternity and found it unimpressive. When the rubric ends, the Inquisitors do not speak to the survivors. They hand them over to the gene forges of Mars. The Astartes organs are implanted with meticulous care, their systems adjusted to accommodate the strange resonance left by the possession. Psychoreactive implants, additional neural dampers, memory shunts, all woven into flesh that has already known invasion. The transformation completes what the rubric began. The body becomes weapon. The soul becomes armor. Every exorcist bears the memory of the demon he has defeated. Some say they can still feel the echo of it, whispering at the edge of thought, like a scar that still itches long after the wound is healed. They use that echo as a weapon, tracking warp anomalies, sensing psychic corruption before it fully manifests. It is not empathy. It is recognition. They know the sin of sin because they have worn it. After the rubric, each initiate stands before a mirror of blackened steel. Their reflection flickers, not quite human anymore. They do not look away. If the image holds steady, they are accepted. If the reflection changes, if the demon still stirs within, they are executed on the spot. Those who pass receive their first mark, a small scar carved above the heart, in the shape of a downward flame. It is not decoration. It is a reminder that they have burned once already, and the fire did not consume them. Only then are they taken to the chapter's fortress monastery, the citadel of absolution, a labyrinth of warded stone orbiting a dead world. Here, their training begins anew, not of muscle or marksmanship, but of restraint. For an exorcist's greatest weapon is not fury. It is control. They learn to meditate within warp storms. They pray in chambers filled with whispering relics. They practice silence until even their heartbeat obeys command. They are taught to walk among the damned without flinching, to gaze into the faces of demons without their souls trembling. And when at last they take the field, the galaxy sees what the rubric was meant to forge. warriors who stride through hell without blinking, men whose minds are steel, whose faith is not hope but defiance. They are the Emperor's contradiction, proof that humanity's greatest weapon may also be its darkest sin. Each one is both priest and monster. Each one carries within him the memory of the thing he killed to become himself. And though they fight for mankind, they know the truth few dare to speak. The line between purity and damnation is not drawn by God. It is drawn by will. When they march, the ground does not tremble. The air does not sing. Only the silence moves with them, heavy, sacred, and final. For every exorcist has walked the abyss and returned unclaimed. Every exorcist has burned once already, and the warp, remembering its defeat, dares not reach for them again. Chapter 3. The Citadel of Absolution. It rises from the darkness like a verdict, a fortress not built, but exhumed, dragged from the bones of a dead world and chained to its orbit, as if the Imperium feared what might happen were it allowed to touch soil again. The Citadel of Absolution is not a monastery. It is a containment scar, a wound in reality sealed with iron, faith, and cold necessity. No pilgrims visit, no banners fly, no songs echo through its halls. For this is the home of the Exorcists, and sanctity here is measured not by prayer, but by containment. The Citadel circles a dead planet whose name was erased long before the chapter claimed it. Some say the world died screaming, its population devoured by a warp anomaly that burned for 7 years. Others claim it was sacrificed, purposely, so the foundations beneath the Citadel would be salted with ashes instead of living souls. Whatever the truth, the planet remains silent. Its cracked surface reflects no light. Nothing grows. Nothing breathes. A perfect tomb. Perfect for warriors who have already died once and refuse to stay buried. From orbit, the Citadel looks like a cathedral bound in chains, vast spires tipped with anti-psyker wards, each tower a lance driven downward into some unseen, seething wound. The structure is dense, metallic, oppressive. It glimmers red when the dying sun sweeps across it, as if blood moves beneath its armored skin. The exorcists say nothing about its origins. They do not speak of the artificers who carved its spiritual geometry, nor the inquisitors who sealed the lower vaults with their own lifeblood. Some stories whisper that the Citadel was not constructed by mortal hands at all, that it was found, half-formed, drifting in the void, humming with a pulse that matched the heartbeat of a sleeping god. The exorcists deny none of these tales. They deny nothing. They simply look at the Citadel with the eyes of men who know the weight of a prison and choose to live within its walls anyway. Inside, the air is cold, not the mild chill of stone corridors, but the deep, marrow-stiffening cold of a place where the warp is held back only by the stubbornness of iron and scripture. Every wall is layered with wards, etched, burned, hammered, sanctified. Some glow faintly, as if resisting pressure no one can see. Others flicker, sparking like nerves under stress. A few have cracked. These are repaired quickly, judiciously, silently. The halls echo with footsteps, measured, heavy, precise. Exorcists do not rush. They move like verdicts delivered, purpose in each stride, stillness in each breath. The Citadel is divided into circles, each one deeper, each one darker, each one closer to the heart where the veil thins. The outer rings are austere, functional, armories stacked with silver bolters, training arenas ringed with wards, chapels carved with scripture that reads more like warning than devotion. But it is the inner rings where the Citadel's true nature reveals itself, where the walls hum with a sound like distant teeth grinding, where shadows cling too long to the corners, where the air feels weighted, as if remembering something heavy, something old. Here the exorcists meditate, not for strength, not for peace, but to maintain the internal war they never speak of. Every exorcist carries a scar on his soul. Every exorcist remembers the demon he expelled. That memory is a blade, sharpened through constant pressure. The Citadel amplifies it. The wards are not only protection, they are mirrors. They reflect back the psychic tension of the exorcists themselves, creating a storm of quiet, internal conflict in every chamber. The fortress tests them constantly. Silence here is not absence. It is discipline. In training vaults lit by flickering cerulean runes, warriors kneel in absolute stillness, while psychic distortions brush against their minds like cold fingertips. Initiates quake beneath the pressure. Veterans sit unmoved, their souls anchored in the memory of the one creature that ever dared push inside their skulls, and failed. Further inward lie the chambers of echo, where the stone itself whispers with residual traces of past exorcisms. These are not haunts. They are scars in reality, psychic burns left by the expelled demons of hundreds of initiates over hundreds of years. Walking through these chambers feels like wading through thoughts that are not your own, memories that taste wrong, invasions that linger like frost. The exorcists train here deliberately. Constant exposure to warp-touched echoes hones their resilience. A mind that endures this environment becomes a fortress. A mind that breaks is removed, permanently. Deeper still lies the vault of solitudes, a labyrinth of isolation cells where initiates spend days, sometimes weeks, submerged in absolute darkness. Here there is nothing to see, nothing to hear, nothing to feel but the echo of the self. Those who crumble in this place reveal fractures that would later doom them to demonic whispers. Those who emerge have eyes that no longer blink at horrors. But no place in the citadel is feared, nor respected, more than the heart of chains. It is not a chamber. It is a descent, a spiral of iron stairs dripping with condensation, leading into a dark older than the fortress itself. Some say it touches the underskin of reality, the place where the warp's breath thins into the physical world. Here, at the bottom, lies the anathema well, a pit lined with thousands of wards, each one carved by a hand that likely did not survive the act. Within the pit, silence, but not peace. A silence with teeth, a silence that feels hungry. This is where the exorcists confront the memory of their demon, not in flesh, not in hallucination, but in the echo within themselves. They kneel, they breathe, and the well breathes back. Some claim they hear the voice of their demon from within the anathema. Others claim they hear nothing at all, just the sound of their own soul settling into place, as if locking into a shape it was always meant to take. The walls drip with condensation, runes hiss, and the exorcist rises again, unchanged, yet fortified. A man who has knelt before the thing that once tried to own him, and felt no fear. Every corridor of the citadel forges this stillness, this inward focus, this cold defiance. The fortress does not teach them how to fight. It teaches them how to endure, how to remain silent in the presence of the warp, how to be a blade that cannot be bent, a mind that cannot be entered, a soul that cannot be taken. The citadel is not a home. It is not a sanctuary. It is a crucible built on the corpse of a world, designed to filter out the weak, strip away the uncertain, and refine the survivors into something the warp itself hesitates to touch. When an exorcist leaves this place, he does not look back, not out of disdain, but because he carries the citadel within him. It's cold, it's silence, it's chains, and when he walks into the fires of a demon world, he brings those chains with him, to bind, to purify, to silence. For the citadel of absolution does not shape warriors. It shapes verdicts, and each exorcist who walks its halls understands. He is not a defender. He is a sentence written in crimson, carried by silence, enforced by inevitability. Chapter 4, the Scarlet Creed. It is not written on parchment. It is not carved into stone. It is not spoken in halls thick with incense and reverence. The Scarlet Creed is older than doctrine, deeper than scripture. It is carved into the souls of the exorcists the moment they cast their demons out. A law forged from trauma, silence, and the cold geometry of survival. Others call their beliefs extreme. Others call them heresy wrapped in purity. But the exorcists know the truth. Faith is meaningless unless it has already been tested in hell. Purity is worthless unless it was earned in fire. The creed does not celebrate victory. It defines inevitability. 1. Truth of the first wound. The creed begins with a single memory, the moment the warp entered their flesh. Every exorcist carries this wound, not visible, not spoken, but present, an echo of something that once tried to claim them, failed, and was cast out by will alone. The wound becomes the foundation. To recognize corruption, one must have tasted its breath. To destroy it, one must know its shape. This is the first law. We are what has survived the impossible. Where other chapters seek glory in purity, the exorcists find strength in the reminder that they have already fallen and risen from their own damnation. They do not fear darkness. They remember it. 2. Silence as armor. The exorcists do not chant. They do not roar. They do not recite battle prayers as they charge into war. Their faith is quiet. Their conviction is internal. A cold flame that does not flicker when the warp howls. The Scarlet Creed teaches, words are doors. Keep them shut. Demons listen. Demons learn. Demons hunger for meaning, noise, emotion. Silence denies them all three. Every exorcist becomes a fortress of stillness. Their thoughts are locked. Their emotions shaped into weapons. Their breaths measured like ritual incantations. Even in the thick of battle, they speak only when necessary. A single word from an exorcist carries more weight than an entire sermon from other chapters. 3. The red mark of remembrance. Each warrior paints a narrow crimson line down the center of his helm, like a wound that never healed. The mark is not decoration. It is not honor. It is confession. It symbolizes the demon that once lived beneath their ribs, the intruder they expelled, the fire they survived. To outsiders, the mark is intimidating. To the exorcists, it is simply truth made visible. They do not hide their scars. Their identity begins with them. The creed states, we bleed once, never again. 4. Purity through destruction. Other chapters cleanse. The exorcists eradicate. They believe corruption is not a stain, but a contagion, one that can only be ended by the destruction of the infected host. There is no mercy in their creed, no forgiveness for those touched by the warp. Once a presence of the Imperium stains flesh or stone, that flesh must burn. That stone must break. Entire cities have vanished under exorcist purges. Entire worlds reduced to ash because a single demon's whisper slithered through the air. The Inquisition calls this ruthless. The Adeptus Astartes call excessive. But the Scarlet Creed has no room for debate. What is tainted must die. What dies cannot betray. 5. Mastery of the inner war. The exorcists never stop fighting their first enemy, the memory inside their own minds. Every warrior lives with the echo of the demon he expelled, a shadow that cannot return, but never fully leaves. The creed trains them to turn this echo into instinct. An exorcist can sense psychic disturbance within moments. He knows the smell of warp rot, the texture of corruption in the air, the pressure at the edge of conscious thought. Where other Astartes notice the signs of demonic infestation, after it appears, exorcists feel them before form coalesces. The creed demands, the enemy outside is nothing. The enemy within teaches. They are sharpened not by victory, but by vigilance. 6. The sanction paradox. Every exorcist lives as a contradiction sanctioned by necessity. A soul that touched corruption, yet remains pure. A warrior forged by trauma, yet unbroken. A servant of the Emperor who carries a fragment of the warp's memory in his blood. The creed embraces this paradox. It teaches the exorcist to be both blade and boundary, the weapon that kills demons, and the wall that resists them. Their purity is not passive. It is earned, active, hostile. We are the wound that does not bleed, the flame that does not warm. Their existence is an affront to the warp, so they make that affront a weapon. 7. Demonography of the self. Each exorcist studies his own demon, not in fear, not in temptation, but in discipline. They record the shape of the presence that once invaded them, not its name, names of power, Not its words. Words are poison. Only its behaviors, its patterns, its hunger. A warrior who remembers what tried to consume him can predict what it would consume next. The Scarlet Creed turns memory into method, survival into strategy, sin into strength. No other chapter would dare such study. But the Exorcists know that understanding is not corruption, not when the mind is fortified by the memory of triumph. Know the shadow that failed to claim you. 8. War's a finality. When the Exorcists go to war, they do not seek victory. They seek ending. Their campaigns follow a simple sequence. Identify, isolate, infiltrate, exorcise, erase. No survivors among the corrupted. No witnesses among the vulnerable. No ruins left to harbor echoes. Their presence is a sentence, not an intervention. A world touched by the warp is not healed. It is silenced. The Creed's harshest line is its most honest. Some worlds are saved through death. 9. The quiet martyrdom. The Exorcists do not expect gratitude, nor recognition, nor remembrance. Their work is invisible, their victories unmarked, their sacrifices consumed by vaults that will never open to the public. They are the forgotten shield, the invisible purifier, the one chapter whose greatest triumphs cannot be spoken, whose battles must end with corpses but no witnesses. Their only reward is silence, the same silence they carry within themselves. The Creed closes with a line whispered only once in a warrior's life. We endure what others cannot. We destroy what others fear. We are the line that does not break. The Scarlet Creed is not read. It is lived, burned, inhaled like smoke, whispered like warning, carried like a scar across the soul. It does not promise redemption. It does not promise salvation. It promises only inevitability. That demons will come again, and the Exorcists will be waiting. Waiting in red, waiting in silence, waiting with the certainty that they alone can stand before the warp, and not blink. Chapter 5. War in the Flesh. The Exorcist Physiology. He was remade in agony, not ascension. Every exorcist bears this truth beneath the skin. The body is no temple. It is a battlefield that never ends. Their creation begins where others would die. For while the rubric of possession burns the soul clean, the flesh must be reforged to hold what remains. A soul so hardened, so alien to fear, that mortal tissue alone could never contain it. And so begins the second war. The gene seed of the Exorcists is a puzzle that even the Mechanicus refuses to solve aloud. The records list them as descendants of the Imperial fists, but even that truth feels sterile, too neat for something so scarred. The Magi biologists who have dissected their dead whisper that their gene stock is different. There are strange resonances in their catalepsian nodes, psychic echoes in their oculobe tissues, and neural patterns that mirror the readings of sanctioned psychers. Though the Exorcists themselves show none of the warp's volatility. Their flesh hums at frequencies that unsettle Auspex machines. Their blood, when exposed to vacuum, clots into mirror black crystal. Their bones carry faint inscriptions, neural scars written by the rubric's agony. They are built to remember suffering, down to the marrow. A normal Astartes is an angel of death. An exorcist is a prison of iron and defiance, built to trap the last breath of the warp's intrusion and hold it in contempt. When the aspirant survives the rubric, his organs are not implanted in sequence like other chapters. Each is introduced alongside rituals of psychic sterilization, microwards carved into the tissue, neural runes burned into nerve endings. The apothecarian's halls smell not of antiseptic, but of oil, blood, and sanctified ash. Each procedure is an exorcism in miniature. Each cut is accompanied by silence, the chanting of machine spirits forbidden, lest words invite something that listens. The heart is baptized in liquid silver before implantation. The lungs are anointed with powdered bone of martyrs. Even the os modula, the bone-forging gland, is branded with the sigil of absolution to ensure the skeleton grows clean, untainted, obedient. Every organ is watched, every implant cataloged, not just for function, but for reaction to the warp. It is said that even the Exorcist's gene seed, when submerged in psychic solution, screams. The Magi who perform this test never confirm it. They only shiver and record the results in silence. But the changes go deeper. The rubric leaves behind more than scars. It alters the mind's relationship to the body. An exorcist feels pain differently. He does not flinch from it. He recognizes it, catalogs it, files it away as one would note the weight of armor or the distance to a target. Their nervous systems run cooler, slower, as if reluctant to relay the sensations that once broke them. They are calm even in dismemberment, detached in torment. The Lyman's ear, which grants balance and resistance to disorientation in all space marines, becomes something greater in exorcists. It filters not just sound, but whisper. Psychic static slides past it unheard. The warp can scream directly into an exorcist's skull and find only quiet rejection. Their eyes, altered by the oculobe, see further into ultraviolet spectrums, but more importantly, they see the shimmer of wrongness. To them, a demon's manifestation is not a trick of form, but a wound in light itself. They see the warp the way surgeons see infection, something to be cut out cleanly, without awe. Even their black carapace, the neural mesh that binds armor to flesh, is modified. Each exorcist's interface ports are lined with microsigils etched into the very nerve endings. When they don their power armor, the union is not mechanical. It is sacramental. Armor and flesh become one continuous invocation of resistance. Their armor does not amplify strength, it amplifies will. When they strike, they do so with conviction as tangible as muscle. When they endure, it is faith that takes the blow first, not bone. And in battle, that difference is everything. The exorcist pain inhibitors are seldom used. They prefer clarity, even in agony. Pain, they teach, is an echo of the demon that once tried to claim them. To dull it would be to forget. To forget would be to invite weakness. Their metabolism burns hotter than most chapters. The psychic tension lingering from the rubric manifests as heat. Thermal scans of an exorcist's strike force in motion show bodies that glow like embers beneath ceramite. Living furnaces walking through ash. In the thick of war, that heat turns to mist, condensing around them in fine red vapor. The sight of it, the exorcists marching through smoke that bleeds from their own skin, has driven cultists to drop weapons and fall to their knees, mistaking them for angels of judgment. They do not correct the mistake. They simply advance. But even perfection has its fractures. The body remembers what the soul survived. Exorcists live shorter than most Astartes. Not by much, a century, perhaps two. But their deaths are quieter, their ends more internal. In their final decades, many become still, withdrawn. Some speak less each year until their last words are delivered mid-battle, uttered softly, almost peacefully. I hear him no more. Then they fall. Autopsies reveal nothing. No organ failure, no damage. It is as if the flame within them simply goes out, not extinguished, but satisfied. The apothecarian of the citadel keeps these corpses upright for days before interment, watching for movement, for breath, for whispers. For an exorcist, death does not always mean stillness. There are records, sealed, redacted, of fallen warriors twitching days after death, their lips moving soundlessly, eyes fixed on some unseen horizon. Some believe the demon's echo lingers, fighting its last war within a corpse that refuses to let go. Others say it is the warrior's soul, wrestling one final time to keep the door shut. Either way, the result is the same. The body is burned. The ashes sealed in warded canisters, stored in the vault of silence deep within the citadel. There are thousands of these canisters. None are labeled. To the exorcists, flesh is not sacred. It is functional, a battlefield that must be won daily against hunger, fatigue, entropy. Their devotion is not to the perfection of form, but to the maintenance of control. Where the blood angels venerate beauty, and the iron hands worship augmentation, the exorcists hold only one belief about the body. The flesh must obey the soul, and the soul, theirs remade, tempered, violated and reborn, obeys nothing but its own will. Their physiology, their mutations, their scars, all of it serves one purpose: to let them stand where no other human thing can stand, to look into the storm of the warp and not blink, to to fight demons not as holy men, but as reflections of their own conquered darkness. They are the Emperor's experiment in perfect containment. A human form turned into a lock, a will turned into a weapon, a silence turned into an armor the warp itself cannot crack. They were never meant to last forever. They were meant to last long enough to cleanse, long enough to hold the line, long enough to remind the galaxy that even in damnation, mankind learned to fight back. When the exorcist removes his helm after battle, steam rolls from his skin. The sin is not blood, but iron and burnt oil. His breath fogs the air. His eyes do not waver. He does not thank the Emperor for strength. He does not ask for blessing. He has already survived the worst thing the universe could offer, and found himself sufficient. He walks away from the corpse of the demon. He looks down at his hands, still trembling from the echo of possession long past. He whispers the first law of the Scarlet Creed under his breath. We are what has survived the impossible. And the silence answers. Calm, endless, final. Chapter 6. The Inquisitorial Covenant. They were born in darkness, but they were owned in silence. The exorcists do not exist without the Inquisition. Not merely supervised, not sanctioned from afar, bound from Genesis to grave. The chapter is chained to the sigils of the Ordo Malleus, willingly or otherwise. Some alliances are forged in fire. This one was forged in fear. The covenant begins not with oaths, but with warnings. Deep within the vaults beneath Terra lie 3 sealed proclamations. They bear the red wax of the High Lords, the silver seal of the Ordo Malleus, and the black sigil of a name few dare speak aloud. The Grey Knights. These decrees define the existence of the exorcists. They are not called privileges. They are not called rites. They are called containment protocols. The first line is always the same. This chapter shall serve at the pleasure of the Ordo Malleus, existing solely to confront the warp and die in its shadow. It is not poetry. It is a sentence. The purpose they did not choose. Other chapters exist for war. The exorcists exist for one specific war. The war against corruption that breathes before its body forms. They are not sent to sieges, not to grand crusades, not to wars of territory or politics. They are deployed when the Inquisition whispers. Something is coming, or worse, something is growing. The exorcists are hunters of infestation, not armies. Their targets are not the corrupted alone, but the seeds of corruption, the moment where the mortal mind first bends. Under pressure from the beyond, the Inquisition sends them because others would falter. Others would die. Others would be consumed. Exorcists simply continue. The price of their creation. No one admits who first conceived the rubric. Not openly. But the archives of the Ordo Malleus contain shards of truth. A weapon must be forged that the warp itself rejects. A soul that has withstood possession becomes anathema. Risk, extreme. Outcome, immeasurable. The Covenant demanded a chapter made of men who had already survived damnation. Because the Ordo Malleus understood a truth most of the Imperium still refuses to face. The greatest threat is not demons. It is the humans who invite them. Thus, the exorcist became a scalpel, a preemptive surgery, a chapter that solves a problem before the galaxy learns it existed. But in making them, the Inquisition chose a path that cannot be undone. For whatever emerges from the rubric is no longer entirely under mortal authority. The Grey Knight's shadow. The Grey Knights are the purest of all Astartes, the Emperor's chosen witch killers, raised in secrecy, bathed in ritual, honed to psychic perfection. They view the exorcists with not contempt, not fear, something colder, recognition. For both chapters are forged through means the Imperium pretends do not exist. But the Grey Knights are born of psychic purity. The exorcists are born of psychic violation. One is light refined, the other is shadow conquered. Their duties intersect only when the threat is so great. That purity alone is not enough. When understanding the war becomes a weapon as necessary as resisting it. In such moments, the exorcists are not allies to the Grey Knights. They are the other hand of the knife. The Grey Knight severs the connection. The exorcist severs the corpse. Both leave silence behind. The inquisitors who do not blink. To work with the exorcists, a human must be something different. The inquisitors assigned to them are chosen for unshakable minds. Men and women who have dissected cultists, walked in a demonic fog, and spoken face to face with the damned. Yet even they avoid meeting the exorcist's eyes for long, not because of danger, but because of memory. An exorcist's gaze carries the echo of what he once expelled. A lingering shadow, a defeated hunger, a whisper inside the bones. Even the Ordo Malleus feels it, but they continue to summon the chapter, again and again, because the covenant demands it. For the exorcists are not merely hunters of demons. They are hunters of incipient heresy, of the invisible seeds, of the places where corruption isn't visible, but inevitable. They arrive early. They act decisively. They leave nothing. The Inquisition appreciates nothing more. The operations that are never recorded. When a world begins to shift, a governor whispering strange things in his sleep, a cathedral choir singing notes not written in scripture, a child claiming to have seen an angel with too many eyes. The Inquisition calls the exorcists, not with trumpets, not with heraldry, a single sealed order, ink black, wax red. The exorcists do not question. They do not ask to see evidence. They do not convene councils. They deploy. When they ascend from the surface, their transports are silent. Their armor is stained. Their expressions unchanged. The world below is not always ruined. Sometimes it is perfectly intact, its people unharmed, its buildings untouched. But the subtle warp taint that once whispered through its veins is gone, burned quietly, efficiently, mercilessly. The Inquisitors record only one phrase in the aftermath. Threat resolved, pre-incursion. It is the highest praise an exorcist can receive. The laws that bind them. The covenant includes bindings no other chapter must endure. 1. The exorcists may not expand without inquisitorial approval. Their numbers are capped. The galaxy does not need too many men who have mastered possession. 2. Their gene seed is never distributed to founding successors. The rubric is not to be repeated. Once was enough. 3. Their dead are property of the Ordo Malleus. Autopsies, dissected memories, psychic residue tests. The bodies of exorcists are studied, like alien artifacts, for their history is not theirs. Most of their records are sealed, even from themselves. 5. Their victories cannot be spoken. A world saved by an exorcist will never know who saved it. This is the Covenant's cruelty. They save humanity, but must never be recognized as human. The unbreakable truth. Despite all this, despite control, observation, containment, despite the rituals carved into every breath they take, the exorcists do not despise the Inquisition. They do not begrudge their chains. They do not long for freedom, for they know the truth. Only because of these chains are they allowed to exist at all. Without the Inquisition, they would have been hunted as abominations, purged, erased, forgotten before they ever fought their first demon. The Covenant is not a burden. It is a shield, a cold, iron shield held between them, and the judgment of a galaxy that fears what it so desperately needs. When an exorcist salutes an inquisitor, his gesture is not deferent. It is not obedient. It is mutual. Two weapons acknowledging one another. Two scars comparing depths. Two predators of the warp, standing in the same shadow. The inquisitor sees a tool. The exorcist sees purpose. And between them, the covenant endures. Silent, absolute, unavoidable. For when the warp stirs, when the veil bleeds, when humanity trembles at the edge of screaming, the Grey Knights arrive as purity. The Inquisition arrives as judgment. But the exorcists arrive as something far colder. The memory of damnation. That did not bow. Chapter 7. The Shadow Wars. They fight where maps end, where augurs fail, where the void curls inward like a wound that refuses to heal. These are not campaigns, not crusades, not wars sung by chaplains or recorded in gilded archives. These are erasures, conflicts that leave nothing behind, not enemies, Not allies, not evidence. The exorcists call them the Shadow Wars. The Inquisition calls them preventions. The rest of the Imperium never learns they occurred. But the warp remembers. And so do the exorcists. The war before the war. A shadow war begins long before the first bolter fires. It starts with a whisper, a tremor in the psychic substrate, a dream that spreads through a city's orphans, a ritual drawn by a dying man in blood he did not know he spilled, a choir whose voices tremble on notes that do not belong to mortal throats. These signs are invisible to most, but to an exorcist, they blaze like sparks on dry tinder. They feel it under their skin, that wrongness, that pressure, that familiar pull toward violation. The warp tries to enter. The exorcists feel the door rattle, and they act. They arrive in silence. Always silence. Their strike cruisers drift without heraldry, black silhouettes against the starless void, as if the darkness itself brought them forth. They make no announcements. They send no warnings. A world awaiting liberation receives no triumphant oration. Only the soft thunder of drop pods falling like verdicts. The first cut, the exorcist's opening strike, is not aimed at armies or strongholds. They target the source, the psychic fissure where the warp has begun to breathe. It may be a cathedral nave, a derelict manufactorum, a child's bedroom, the ruins of an ancient, forgotten altar buried beneath stone thick with dust. Corruption has no preference for grandeur. It festers wherever fear once lingered too long. The exorcists breach these places with surgical brutality. Melted charges blooming into white suns. Warded blades slicing through walls as though the metal had already surrendered. And when they find the locus of infection, they do not sanctify it. They do not bless it. They destroy it, utterly, violently, without remorse. An exorcist sees a warp portal the way a surgeon sees gangrene, not as a curse, but as a problem that must be removed. If civilians stand nearby, they are swept aside. If clergy protest, they are silenced. The shadow wars allow no witnesses. The hunt through madness. Once the breach is severed, the real war begins. The exorcists move through the afflicted zone like phantoms. Silent, methodical, implacable. They see corruption before it manifests. Sensing warp pressure like others sense heat. Their movements resemble predation. One squad advances while another circles. One draws the enemy out. One cuts the line of retreat. One disappears entirely, only to reappear in the heart of the infestation, with bolter fire blooming like muted thunder. But demons do not fight like mortals. They distort space, twist time, laugh through severed mouths, bleed in shapes that should not exist. To battle them is to fight an enemy made of thought and hunger. But to the exorcists, the warp is not mystery. It is memory. They strike without awe, without hesitation, without the fear that cripples mortal minds. Where a mortal sees an abomination, an exorcist sees a familiar silhouette, the echo of what he once defeated inside himself. And so he advances, unshaken. The red silence. When an exorcist kills a demon, there is no roar of triumph, only the sound of matter collapsing, reality stitching itself closed, and a warrior breathing out slow and cold. But when they kill the mortal vessels, the cultists, the dream-touched, the psychers who heard too much, there is even less sound. A bolt to the chest, a blade across the throat, a shot to the skull before mutation can bloom behind the eyes. No ceremony, no hesitation, no cruelty, just inevitability. For the exorcists believe a hard truth. A corrupted mind is already dead. The body only delays the burial. Entire communities fall beneath their purges. Entire orders of sanctioned psychers vanish without record. Entire regiments of the Astra Militarum are declared lost. Their corpses burned before dawn. This is not mercy, nor malice. It is containment. The Scarlet Creed makes no allowances for survival. The battles no one remembers. Some shadow wars escalate. A breach widens. A demon prince pushes through. A city becomes an altar. The night sky tears open. In these rare moments, The Exorcists wage open war, streets collapsing under Terminator plate, air shimmering with sanctified rounds, warp light flickering across crimson armor. They fight with precision, like men cutting tumors from a dying body. The Grey Knights may join them, or not. The Inquisition does not always send its greatest. Sometimes it sends the Exorcists alone, because alone is enough. The aftermath is always the same. The demons die, the people die, the world suffers, the breach closes, and silence returns. When the administratum arrives, they find ruins, ash, records burned, populations missing. They label the cause: rebellion, civil war, natural disaster. The Exorcists are never mentioned, and the galaxy continues. Ignorant, safe, alive, because of the blood no one saw spilled. The worst war of all, but the hardest war, the deepest, the one that cost them pieces of themselves, is fought not on worlds, but in the void. Warp storms hide things that should not exist, things that crawl along the edges of Geller fields, things that whisper to ships drifting too close to the stormfront. The Exorcists patrol these shadows, not hunting demons, but hunting the beginnings of demons. A flicker of psychic static in an astropath's skull, a nightmare that spreads between navigators, a ship whose machine spirit hums in an unfamiliar pitch. To others, these are anomalies. To Exorcists, these are fractures. They board the vessel. They investigate. They slaughter, every crewman showing signs of warp exposure. In the engine decks, they often find something worse: the warp listening, waiting to push. The Exorcists answer with bolter fire, with ritual silence, with execution and erasure. A ship that might have birthed a demon instead becomes a tomb, sealed in orbit, and left adrift until it rusts. Some Exorcists never return from these missions, not because they died, but because they never spoke again. Their minds collapse inward, burned by memories even they could not contain. These warriors are taken to the Citadel's depths. They do not rejoin their brothers. They do not scream. Their silence is so absolute, it scatters demons. The final truth of the Shadow Wars: the Exorcists do not fight for glory. They do not fight for recognition. They do not fight for the Imperium's applause. They fight because they have already seen what the warp wants, because they remember the hunger inside their own bodies, because they know, deep in marrow that once screamed, that if they fail, there will be nothing left to save. The Shadow Wars never end. They cannot end, for corruption does not announce itself. It whispers, creeps, grows, and the Exorcists are the only ones who can hear it clearly. They fight where the rest of humanity refuses to look, in places without light, without witnesses, without hope. They carry silence like a sword. They cut shadows before they grow. They erase futures no one else knew were coming. And when the war is done, when the last corrupted soul is burned, when the last demon flees screaming back into Imperium, the Exorcists depart the way they arrived, quietly, inevitably, leaving behind worlds that will never know how close they came to screaming forever. Chapter 8. The Crimson Companies. They march as if carved from the same silence. Crimson armor, black eyes, voices scarce as breath in a tomb. To outsiders, they appear uniform, identical predators stamped from one unholy mold. But within the Exorcists, each company carries its own burden, its own function in the eternal purging of the warp. They are not simply divisions of war. They are philosophies, shaped by the scars of their creation. Every company bleeds the same, kills the same, dies the same, but for different reasons. They are not brothers. They are instruments, each tuned to a different frequency of damnation. The first, the Sanctuary. The first company moves like judgment made flesh. Veteran Terminators forged in ritual fire, wielding relics sealed behind 100 layers of wards. Their role is simple: to step into the mouth of hell and close it from the inside. When a demon prince claws its way into flesh, when a cult reaches critical mass, when possession engulfs a hive city like plague, it is the Sanctuary who descend. They are not fast. They are not subtle. They are the weight of inevitability. Walking cathedrals whose footfalls shake the bones of heretics. Each veteran bears a brand over the heart, a blackened scar shaped like a falling flame. The mark burns when demons draw near. Some nights, it burns even in sleep, but they never scream. The sanctuary are the calm in the center of the warp, the still point around which madness breaks. The second, the Opharine. The second company walks with the rhythm of prophecy. These warriors are not psychers, yet they carry a sensitivity that borders on the uncanny. Their perception of the warp is not sight, but scent, taste, pressure against the skull. They are trackers of unseen things. Sensitives created not by psychic talent, but by the trauma of the rubric still whispering in their veins. They detect corruption before instruments register it. They feel possession before the victim twitches. They taste the warp on the air, like metal before lightning. The Opharine conduct reconnaissance in the Shadow Wars. Their footsteps lead the chapter, toward the places where reality is thinning. Their commander once said, "I do not see the warp. I remember it. That is enough." The third, the Maliorum. If the second company are hunters, the third are executioners. Fast, precise, merciless. They deploy in tight kill teams. Their movements surgical, their kills silent. The Maliorum specialize in urban purges. Hive spires, manufactoria, shrine complexes, where corruption hides behind walls thick with prayer. Or sin. They kill cults before they fully form. They purge psychers before they explode. They sterilize neighborhoods with flame, leave corridors stacked with bodies that died quietly. And together, the Maliorum's creed is whispered, not shouted. No witness, no warning, no return. The fourth, the penitentiary. These warriors fight with weight in their bones. Their silence is thicker, their gaze colder, their presence heavier than even normal exorcists. The penitentiary bear the deepest scars of the rubric. Their demons were stronger, more invasive, more intimate, some never fully healed. Their hands tremble when idle. Their eyes flicker in half-sleep, as if hearing something only they can sense. But in battle, they are unstoppable. Rage is not their fuel. Resolve is. They fight as if each kill pays off a debt carved into their marrow. The Inquisition watches this company closely, fearing what might grow within them. The Exorcists watch them too, not out of suspicion, but reverence. The penitentiary have walked further into damnation than any mortal should, and returned. The fifth, the Quietus. Stealth is not subtlety. Stealth is acceptance. That if a mission succeeds, no one will ever know. The Quietus specialize in infiltration and erasure. They move without light, without name, without trace. Their armor is modified with sound-dampening filigree. Their bolters tempered for subsonic discharge. Their blades coated in dusted black. That reflects no lumen glow. When the Inquisition needs a cult purged, without altering the political balance of the system, they call the Quietus. They do not leave bodies. They do not leave rubble. They do not leave answers. Just a population. One criminal organization smaller. One secret cleaner. One threat gone. And no one knows why. The sixth, the Indagen. The sixth company deals not in battle, but in extraction. They recover relics warped by the Imperium. They retrieve possessed psychers, still twitching against their restraints. They reclaim artifacts that the Mechanicus refuses to name. Their war is containment, not destruction. If a demon is bound inside living tissue, the Indagen take that flesh alive for sanctified study. If a forbidden tome whispers in a locked vault, they break the vault and silence the whisper. Their operations are the most dangerous of the chapter, not because of what they fight, but because of what they are ordered to spare. An exorcist's first instinct is annihilation. The Indagen must override instinct with cold discipline. Their failures are cremated. Their successes are feared. The seventh, the Eremite. The seventh does not fight beside the others. They roam the void alone. Each warrior commands a single frigate, a black arrow loosed into the emptiness, to seek out anomalies, trace warp tides, and vanish before answering hails. These lone warriors drift at the edge of Gellar storms, listening, watching, sensing. Most die, some disappear, a few return years later, with knowledge that scars the chapter's librarius. The eremite exists because the warp moves quickly. Its whispers spread before armies can respond. The seventh answers whispers with whispers, cutting the infection before the wound opens. Their solitude is not madness. It is service. To fight the warp, one must sometimes become as patient as the void itself. The eighth, the marshal. Not every war is shadow. Some demons demand spectacle. When a greater demon strides across a battlefield, cloaked in flame and arrogance, when mortal armies break, when whole regiments beg the emperor for deliverance, the marshal descend. Heavy infantry, siege breakers, war priests armed with chain blades, carved with liturgies that drip sanctified oil. They are the exorcists unleashed into open war, the closest thing the chapter has to a traditional battle line. But even they fight differently. While other Astartes hold formation, the martial move as one slow tide of absolute denial, a wall of crimson that advances until nothing moves. On the other side, the 10th, the ascetic. The 10th is not a scout company, not truly. Other chapters train their neophytes in stealth and speed. The exorcists train theirs in survival of the self. The ascetic company is made of initiates who have just survived the rubric, their bodies still healing, their minds still smoldering. They do not learn marksmanship first. They learn silence, patience, isolation, weeks in sensory deprivation, months in labyrinths where whispers echo, years of discipline. That hardens the mind before the body ever learns to kill cleanly. Only when the silence inside them stabilizes are they granted bolters. Their first targets are always cultists. Their second are their own fears. The survivors graduate into other companies. Those who fail never rise again. The ascetic is not a path. It is a gate, and it closes loudly. The truth of the companies. Each company fights differently. Each carries a different cross. Each stands as a different shape of denial against the hunger of the warp. But together, they form a single philosophy. Corruption must be ended before it grows. Silence must fall before the scream. The warp must fear the memory of the men who conquered it. And so the Crimson Companies march. 9 blades forged for 9 wounds. That reality tears open again and again. Where they go, the warp recoils. Where they strike, the galaxy forgets. Where they stand, corruption dies before it speaks. For the exorcists are not 10 companies. They are one verdict. You may not enter. Chapter 9, the warp-born foes. They do not fear demons. Fear is for those who have not already drowned in the dark and clawed their way back to breath. Fear is for those who still believe they have something to lose. The exorcists have already lost everything that can be taken, and so they face the warp, not as warriors, not as priests, but as survivors of the impossible. Men who know what waits behind the veil, because it once lived in their bones. Their enemies are not armies, not creatures, not things that bleed and fall. Their enemies are concepts given flesh, hunger shaped into talons, madness shaped into mouths, emotion molded into killing storms. Each demonic foe is a reflection of something deeper, a truth of the universe, made visible, weaponized, and sent screaming into mortal realms. To face them is to face the first sins of existence. But to the exorcists, sin is familiar. They remember its taste. Those made of hunger. The exorcists are called most often against the spawn of corn, creatures of rage, of death, of blood-mad inevitability. Where other space marines stand firm, these demons break lines like surf breaking sand, fury incarnate, each blow a condemnation, delivered with monstrous certainty. But the exorcists do not meet rage with rage. They respond with stillness. To a bloodletter, this stillness is unbearable. It is an insult, a denial of the truth written in their nature. They strike, The exorcist steps through the blow. A blade enters a demon's chest. Without emotion, without hurry, without any satisfaction in the kill. And the demon realizes too late. This is not a mortal. This is a man who has already killed the rage inside himself and left the corpse behind. The warp recoils from such quiet. 2. Those made of lies. Sensuous children dance like thought made venomous. They unravel minds before they tear flesh. A single glance triggers visions of futures where the self fractures, splits, fails. Most humans collapse under such revelations. Most space marines buckle. Most psychers scream until the blood runs from their eyes. But the exorcist does not scream. He remembers the first whisper inside his skull, the demon he expelled by sheer defiance. Compared to that, the visions of Tsench seem little more than echoes. He steps forward through illusions, cuts the impossible, and watches nightmares die like animals. Uncertainty cannot move him. He has already survived the moment where reality itself betrayed him, and he did not break. What, then, could trickery accomplish? 3. Those made of rot. Nurgle's children are the most grotesque and the most tragic. Creatures of decay, of generosity turned to mockery, of comfort twisted into contagion. They infect the air, the soil, the very certainty that tomorrow will be better. Their presence is a hymn to surrender. But exorcists do not surrender. They have no comfort to lose. Hope was burned out of them long ago, replaced by cold acceptance. When they face great unclean ones, they do not retch. They do not fear infection. They walk through the miasma as if through mist, immune not by biological miracle, but by will, because plague is only frightening to those who believe they deserve to live. An exorcist dies every day of his life and rises again. There is nothing for rot to devour. 4. Those made of desire. Slaanish's spawn are the most dangerous to the unscarred. They overwhelm, they tempt, they seduce the senses into surrender long before the blade falls. Pleasure is a weapon sharper than any chained word. Despair is its twin. But the exorcists have been hollowed, their nerves burned, their desires carved out by rituals meant to kill lesser souls. Slaanish sees them and finds nothing to hold, nothing to tempt, nothing to twist. They are echoes, wearing flesh, and the prince of excess cannot tempt a man who feels nothing at all. So Slaaneshi demons fight with fury, a tantrum of a god denied its favorite food, and they die just as quietly as all the others. V. The unknown things. Not all foes of the warp have names. Not all serve gods. Some are stray horrors, half-formed thoughts discarded by Imperium, seeking bodies to wear, like wolves seeking warm carcasses. These are the worst. These are the things that kill librarians mid-sentence, that dissolve astropaths into red fog, that creep into dreams and rewrite them into instructions. Things that cannot be cataloged, because by the time they are described, they have already become something else. Things that should not exist. Things that exist anyway. The exorcists hunt these most of all. They do not study them. They do not fear them. They simply kill them. For the same reason a man kills a venomous insect, because it must be crushed before it bites. 6. The possessed. But the most tragic enemies are the humans who once prayed to the emperor. Priests with halos of whispering flies. Children with eyes too wide for their skulls. Guardsmen whose shadows move before they do. Sisters of battle who speak in voices that no longer belong to flesh. Possession is not transformation. It is invasion, and no one knows that better than the men who survived it. The exorcists do not hate the possessed. They pity them, but pity does not stay their blades. They kill swiftly, without cruelty, without hesitation. A single bolt to the skull, a purified blade through the spine, a whispered prayer, not for salvation, but for erasure. A possessed soul cannot be saved, but it can be freed, and that is enough. 7. The final enemy. But there is one foe worse than all the rest. Not a demon, not a creature, not a thing that crawls through the warp, like a parasite seeking hosts. The worst enemy is the small, quiet fear that grows in mortal hearts, the hopelessness that invites the whisper, the despair that opens the gate. The exorcists cannot kill despair with a blade. They cannot burn hopelessness with promethium, but they can kill the things that feed on it. They can sever the hand that reaches for the mind. They can end the soul that has already surrendered. They can silence what should never have spoken, and in that silence, the warp loses its purchase. 8. The truth behind every kill. The exorcists do not kill demons to win battles. They kill demons to prevent births. Every enemy they face is a symptom of something deeper. Every exterminated cult is a wound cauterized. Every silenced planet is a corruption prevented. Every demon slain is a doorway slammed before the scream. They are not heroes. They are not martyrs. They are not saints. They are reminders to the warp itself that humanity remembers how to fight back. They are the cold edge of a truth the demons cannot unmake. We have seen you. We have survived you, and we will silence you again. 9. The end of the hunt. The exorcists walk away from each purge without looking back. Their foes dissolve into nothing. Their traces burned, their names forgotten, and the chapter continues. Silent, patient, unafraid, for they know the truth. Every demon fears. The exorcists are not warriors. They are verdicts. They are not defenders. They are corrections. They are not alive to be saved. They are alive to end. And when the final demon falls, when the warp grows quiet, when the universe exhales its last trembling breath, the exorcist will stand still, listening for whispers that may never come again. The silence will be vast, absolute, eternal, and they will know, at last, that their purpose is finished, not with glory, not with triumph, but with the most sacred ending the chapter has ever sought, a galaxy where nothing is left to purge,